The Bible says in one verse, "And the stones from heaven killed more than the swords of Israel." The point is, God has these three weapons ready for Russia, for Iran, and for Turkey, and everybody that follows them in the near future.
And strike until you have victory. For every enemy that is aligned against you, let there be that we would strike the ground, for you will give us victory, God. I hear a sound of abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory.
This earthquake is going to swallow one third of the advancing army consisting of Russia, Turkey, and what's left of Iran, and groups of Islamics that want to join this marching army in the future coming to Israel.
This is the current Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, former Fox News employee. Nice man. Very nice man. 2018, in Jerusalem, and as someone who knew him well, I can tell you I had no idea that he had such evolved and specific and apparently very informed opinions on rebuilding the Third Temple, of all questions. This is not something they teach you in Sunday school in the Presbyterian Church. This is not something that people talk about at dinner in the United States. This is not something our Congress ever mentions, that the president ever talks about. This is considered so esoteric and weird and crypto-historical and religious and kind of culty and what's Chabad, and that no one ever mentions it. But here's Pete Hegseth, football player from Princeton, going on about it in a way that suggests he's thought a lot about it. This is 2018.
Today, Jennifer and I and others had a chance to go see the Western Wall of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle, and there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible. I don't know how it would happen, you don't know how it would happen, but I know that it could happen.
What is that? That's the Secretary of War right now, overseeing the war with Iran that people fighting it are starting to say actually is about rebuilding this third temple. It's the same man. Okay, this is the point where you begin to think maybe we should have talked about this and its implications. And what are its implications? Religious war?
Just a little earlier, I got out of the administration's briefing to the Senate about the situation in Iran. And what you hear behind closed doors is essentially what we're hearing in the public domain, which is complete incoherence. No explanation for why Donald Trump broke his promise to the country when he said he wasn't going to drag us into additional wars, and constantly shifting narratives about what this is all about, right? Even today in the Oval Office, the president was spinning all sorts of rationales. On the one hand, they say it's to go after Iran's nuclear program. We know Iran has no nuclear weapons capability. After all, the president told the country that it had been decimated last year. So then they say, well, we're going to go after Iran's ballistic missiles. Well, Iran has no ballistic missiles that can get anywhere close to the United States. Zero. And of course, then Donald Trump said he was going to liberate the people of Iran. But if you look at public reporting about the CIA's assessment, it says that they concluded that if you get rid of the Iranian leadership, you're very likely to get a much more, even more, radical group in their place. But we do know from Secretary Rubio that Netanyahu decided to strike Iran. And so here we are, doing what Prime Minister Netanyahu said he wanted to do for 40 years, which was to attack Iran. It's just Netanyahu had not found a president stupid enough to drag the United States into that war before. And now Donald Trump has done it, and they don't have a clue as to what the end game is.
Iran is hitting these bases, aren't they?
Iran is hitting these bases. It's having a lot of bad effect because one...
But why is that? I thought our defenses were the U.S. defenses were so strong.
Because Israel's more important than the American clients in the Persian Gulf.
الضابط السابق في الجيش الأمريكي ستانيسلاف كرابيفنيك يؤكد أن واشنطن أوهمت دول الخليج بقدرتها على حمايتهم، لكن صدموا بأن الدفاعات كلها توجه إلى إسرائيل.
Israel has clear missions as well, for which we are grateful. Capable partners. As we've said since the beginning, capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing.
As a military vet, I can vouch for that. The hotels that you see getting hit are the hotels that the military and the government officials stay at. That's where they all live. That's where they all hang out. The Crown Plaza that got hit in Bahrain, that's literally where the SEAL teams stay. That's where the senior officers stay. The Palm Hotel in Dubai, same.
This is American military base in Bahrain, and this is American military base in Qatar, and this one in Jordan, and this one right here in Abu Dhabi. All American military bases in the Middle East are getting directly hit by Iran. What happened to all the air defense systems like THAAD? Oh, wait, they're all protecting Israel. That's the only place that's not getting directly hit. What happened to all the America First patriots? The U.S. was purposely fed inaccurate information that this will never happen by their closest ally. Congratulations, the U.S. got suckered into another Middle East war on behalf of Israel.
American bases in Bahrain and Kuwait and Qatar and Saudi Arabia are some of the biggest military installations the U.S. has anywhere on the planet. These are assets that it took trillions to build, not billions, trillions. Because I have to remind you, the U.S. defense budget is almost $1 trillion a year. None of this was built in 1 year. This was built over many decades. This is a big part, a big chunk of American military expenditure for 30 years or more, going up in smoke. This is what we're seeing now. We are seeing radars costing hundreds of millions of dollars a piece, or $1 billion plus a piece, being destroyed in an instant. We are seeing entire military bases being abandoned, burned, decimated, destroyed. And I'm telling you from my knowledge of American military history, and I'm not an expert, but I'm not a complete ignoramus as well. The US has never suffered such devastation in its entire history, except maybe Pearl Harbor. And this is one time, one day. No enemy in normal war has done to the US military what the Iranians are doing to the US military right now. Right now. This is beyond, we cannot believe it still. This defies belief. This defies belief. This is so bad, the situation, the military situation, this is the first war I'm describing. The military situation is so bad that censorship blocks practically every piece of new information about this war. And if you've noticed, we are being exposed to less and less every day.
I was talking also to a Middle East expert not long ago, and he was saying that with these bases being obliterated, basically, to use a term, essentially he doesn't think, because he thinks the Arabs are going to be so irate with us for having kicked over this hornet's nest, because it is not going to end anytime soon. His belief is that once the war does end or settles down enough for us to say, hey, we're good, we're done, the Arabs are going to say, you're not building back in our countries anymore. So
why would they? We didn't defend them. I mean, this is a reciprocal relationship. They're not doing this because they love us. They give us deals on billions, hundreds of billions in foreign investment in the United States, all this. But in exchange, we promised to protect them, and we didn't.
That's right. And in fact, there's reports, and I think they're credible. In fact, the Saudi official was complaining about this 2 days ago. Basically, whatever air defense systems were in these Arab countries were sent over to Israel.
Yeah.
And they actually left our own bases and people vulnerable. Our own government did, to protect Israeli targets rather than to protect our men and women in uniform.
Do you believe that's true? Do you believe the U.S. government prioritized Israel over our own troops?
If you had asked me this a year or two ago, I would have said no way. But after seeing that Huckabee interview, by the way, bravo. After seeing that Huckabee interview, I can't imagine how we didn't do that. I mean, it is very clear the United States is being led around the nose right now by what should be its proxy. I mean, let's get it real. I mean, it should be, so
they're the housekeeper. We're the homeowner. Like, what is this? I don't get it. No, I'm serious. I don't understand.
I agree.
זה כיפות ברזל לעבר שברים. וואי.
بينما جميع وكالات الأنباء العالمية تتجنب عرض المشهد كاملا بحجة الخضوع للرقابة العسكرية، لدرجة أنها تتعمد تحريك كاميراتها إلى شوارع جانبية كلما لاحت في السماء الصواريخ الإيرانية. إليك المشهد كما هو في دولة الاحتلال وفق ما تنقله هواتف المستوطنين. هذه هي حقيقة ما يحدث في إسرائيل، وهي حقيقة لا يراها العالم بسبب غطرسة حكومة نتنياهو والرقابة العسكرية الصارمة التي تمنع نشر صور الدمار والأضرار الجسيمة. هنا تل أبيب، وهذا الذي تلتهمه النيران مبنى تابع لجهاز المخابرات، وهذه أيضا مدينة تل أبيب بحسب المصدر نفسه.
هذا ما يحدث في تل أبيب رغم التعتيم الإعلامي المكثف والمراقبة التي يمارسها الجيش الإسرائيلي. الوضع في إسرائيل مروع والخسائر فادحة في صفوف الإسرائيليين. دمار وخراب في كل ركن والخسائر فادحة، كما يعلق من وثقوا هذه المشاهد. الصواريخ الإيرانية تدمر جميع مصافي النفط والغاز والوقود في ميناء حيفا. الوضع ليس كما يصوره بنيامين نتنياهو الذي يتحدث عن تغيير الشرق الأوسط موهما العالم بنصر مزعوم. فإيران ترسم صورا داخل الأراضي المحتلة غير مسبوقة في تاريخ الشرق الأوسط، حيث صارت إسرائيل وفق أحد المستوطنين أشبه بغزة.
المطار دخل المطار، المطار ندخل يا ولاد، يلا المطار يلا المطار ندخل لا المطار ده يمنع عن تحرك 200 المطار. يا رب الله يا يا الله يو قرب الله.
يا ابوي وصلنا ضل.
Okay, guys, we got to get off the roof. These are coming down right next to us here. They're coming down. One just about. We got to go inside.
وين قلتي؟ كيف؟
נפילות אחי, נפילות של החיים בנבטים. נפילות בנבטים אחי. נפילות קשות בנבטים, שומע? וואו 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 וואו, הכל נופל לנבטים, אני אומר לך מתקפה אחת החזקות. אימא'לה, זהו, למקלט.
תבדעו.
And secondly, because the mass media, CNN, BBC, Sky News, have accepted Israeli censorship and are therefore not broadcasting the footage that they have taken over a Tel Aviv that now looks like Gaza. How do I know that? Because I've got friends in Tel Aviv. Sheinkin Street, Tel Aviv. Near Dizengoff Square, Tel Aviv. And they've been walking around, and it's they who tell me from their own mouth that Tel Aviv now looks like Gaza. How could it not? Because the air defenses over Tel Aviv are no longer operational. The Iranians are hitting at will with the most powerful ballistic missiles. 50 ballistic missiles hit Tel Aviv last evening alone. They're also lying to you about the number of American casualties. as one of my guests, I'm sure, will testify in just a few minutes. How can all these CIA bases, all these American embassies, all these foreign bases of the United States, how can they all have been hit and destroyed with only 4 dead Americans? I'm going to take a flyer, and it's this. There are approaching 1,000 dead Americans, and they can't be hidden forever. I've only 1 minute to tell you that just minutes ago, over in Moscow, President Putin said, well, the European Union is going to stop all imports of Russian gas in 9 months' time. So we really should stop the supply of European gas now and sell our gas to more promising markets. That's what he just said on the day that natural gas prices doubled in Europe. In 1 day of war, of the markets being open, they doubled. After Putin's remarks, they'll double again tomorrow. The stock markets are plunging, except the Israeli stock market. The only stock market in the whole world that went up on Monday and Tuesday was the Israeli stock market, but the rest in every country are circuit-breaking, collapsing. And the Iranians have said not one drop of oil will leave the Persian Gulf. That all sounds like the apocalypse to me.
This administration has committed more war crimes in the last few days than I think any country since Adolf Hitler committed. And that is an incredible condemnation of this entire process. We have bombed civilians relentlessly. We have bombed a school. We have bombed a hospital. We have struck facilities in the nature of Tehran's oil capacity that is now putting black poison all over 10 plus million people. And we are essentially not bombing ballistic missile sites and bombing war materiel. We're bombing people. We took a lesson from the IDF, if you will. We are bombing people, as incidentally they are still doing in Gaza and doing now in Lebanon to a fare thee well. These are all war crimes. And one wishes with fond hope that someday we might be called before the bar of justice and have to account for these war crimes. And on top of all of that, and this is the real serious problem here for America, Trump and Hegseth and Rubio and the other entourage of their national security complex have completely misjudged the nature of this war, as has to a certain extent Bibi Netanyahu. This is a country as big as Western Europe, with 93 million people, probably 90 million of whom will fight us to the bitter death, who live in terrain that almost killed Alexander the Great. It is entirely inhospitable to military operations, and Trump is actually talking about putting ground forces there. And the only way he will be able to claim any nature of victory is to do that. Only that will be the end of the empire's presence in the Levant and the Middle East in general, because we will not be able to sustain that economically, physically. We do not have the soldiers or Marines to do that, but that's what he's talking about. This is pure nonsense. So this is a war with long legs. Trump has completely misinterpreted it. The only one who's interpreted it correctly is Bibi Netanyahu, and I think he's ready to use a nuclear weapon should it become as bad as it looks like it might right now, because Iran has not even began to shoot its most sophisticated missiles. And now the second and third class of those missiles is getting through almost without opposition, or going to do to Israel once they're fired. And they're still there, and they're still ready to fire.
Now they want to ask for a ceasefire again. Why would Trump's people indirectly have sought 2 ceasefires in these 10 days?
Because we lost the war, and they know it. This war can't be won. They sought the ceasefire early on to prevent what's happening now, which is a global energy security crisis and the destabilization of the global economy because of high energy prices. Now that this happened, they need to reverse this. They need to end this. So they're asking for a ceasefire. The Iranians are 100% correct because a ceasefire today simply resets the map. Iran has suffered so much, sacrificed so much to achieve the position they're at today, where they have strategic superiority over both the United States and Israel in this conflict. Israel is defenseless. Iran's getting ready to turn up the heat. The Gulf Arab states are defenseless. In the United States, there's nothing the United States can do to stop Iran. And what could happen next is if we continue to strike, for instance, if Israel continues to strike strategic energy-related targets inside Iran, Iran will destroy the totality of the energy production capacity of the Middle East. And that's game, set, match. It can't be replaced. The people that will win in the long run will be Russia, which is sitting in the catbird seat right now. China, because China will have a strategic relationship with Russia, and Russia will provide them with the energy. India is going to be a disastrous loser, You only have to look at the lines of Indians trying to fill up their canisters with gas. India picked the wrong side. They chose Israel over Iran, a fellow BRICS member. So India is going to pay a horrible price. Europe is going to collapse. And the United States is going to suffer the consequences as well, because even though we're energy independent in theory, we're not. The oil market is part of a global market. The petrodollar is part of a global market. We can't isolate ourselves from the world. We are linked to the world. So when prices spike globally, they spike at home, unless the president can do something to offset it. But in order to do that, you need a strategic petroleum reserve that's been fully stocked. Ours hasn't, because the president hasn't done his job. So you're going to see increasing moves by the president to bring an end to this conflict. He may try to declare victory down the road. What he's going to try to do, if I'm a guessing man, is he's going to try and kill the new supreme leader. And once he murders that supreme leader, he will declare victory and walk away, not understanding that the Iranians will never let him walk away.
If Israel and the United States cannot defeat Iran, and you have a regime in place that wants nuclear weapons, that means there's no conventional option for preventing Iran from getting nuclear weapons. How are you going to do that? I think then the Israelis will think about using nuclear weapons against any incipient Iranian nuclear capability. I think this is a remarkably dangerous situation. If the Israelis lose in Iran, they will be fully aware that they lost. They will be fully aware that they will have enraged the Iranian body populace. They will be fully aware that an Iran with nuclear weapons will be very, very dangerous from Israel's perspective, and they will go to great lengths to prevent that. And if they can't prevent it through conventional means, then we get to a scenario where they think about using nuclear weapons. And as we know, there's no state on the planet that is more ruthless, more murderous than the Israelis. So the idea that they would use nuclear weapons is certainly plausible. And I really worry about this scenario.
We can't defend against what the Iranians are going to throw against Israel. We can't defend what they're going to throw against us. We can't defend what they're going to throw against the region. And that's the other voice here too. Saudi Arabia, Azerbaijan, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, all of these oil producing, gas producing nations will lose the totality of their energy production capacity if there's a major regional conflict. This will not only be devastating for them, but the world. You mentioned Donald Trump's, popularity or unpopularity rating. It's going bad now because of some of the domestic policies he's made. If he goes to war against Iran, he's sunk. He not only will lose the House, he could very well lose the Senate. And if he's not careful, he could lose the Senate to the degree where he could get convicted once he's impeached, because he will be impeached. There's no doubt about that. If Donald Trump attacks Iran, he will be impeached because he will lose the House. And if he attacks Iran and we have thousands of American dead, we have a collapsed economy because this man went on a war of choice that could have been avoided had he been serious about diplomacy.
Keeps going on. I'm warning that there's going to be a false flag attack, another 9/11 that's going to unite the people to support this war. It's going to happen in Europe. It's going to happen in America. And you're seeing all the stuff, the anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic stuff coming out. Get ready for the 9th crusade. That's what they're going to turn it into, and the people will buy it. Watch out for the false flag. That's my greatest concern. They did it before. They'll do it again. Little Georgie Bush was way down in the polls. The NASDAQ was down 80%, lost its value after the dot-com bust. 9/11 happened. 90% of the people swallowed the crap, spewing out of that little boy's mouth. We're going to get that guy Osama bin Laden dead or alive. Longest war in American history, the Afghan War.
Yeah, you're right about all this, Gerald. I hope you're wrong about the false flags, but your predictions thus far, and I'm sorry to say, have been flawless.
So I think we're seeing the world sort of move in an entirely new direction. I would argue this is the end of Sykes-Picot. I think the maps are going to change. I'll be very surprised if all these family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf survive in their current form. I think the damage that's being done economically is going to stay with us for some period of time. The Indians have already turned to purchase oil again from the Russians, and that makes perfect sense for them. I'm surprised they ever went along with us to begin with. The dollar is losing airspeed and altitude. I mean, economically, this is a catastrophe. Financially, for us, I think it's a disaster. It's going to take more time, but over time, it's going to get worse for us. Remember, we are the ones that have been boasting to the world about how powerful we are and how the entire world needs to shake in fear of the American military power. Well, then people are going to expect us to perform. Iran, on the other hand, hasn't got to do anything other than survive. As long as Iran survives and the longer the war lasts, the weaker we look, the weaker Israel looks, and the stronger Iran looks. And I think Iran is going to survive. I don't see any evidence that it's going to suddenly pick up the phone, call Washington, and beg for mercy. Don't see that happening. So we're in a real trick. I think at the end of the day, we're going to be swept out of the region. Look at what's happening in Iraq right now. The Shia are rising, and the Iraqi government wants us out of the country. It's wanted us out for years. I think we're going to have to get out. I don't think anybody living in the Gulf is going to want us in proximity to any of their harbors or airports or anything else. So I think this is a developing disaster for us. And Israel's Iron Dome isn't working very well. And although we are definitely trying to fire missiles in support of Israel at air and missile defense, the Iranians seem to have moved technologically much further than we anticipated. They are now able to deliver missiles that have decoys that, produce multiple warheads, and then the real dangerous missile that you're trying to penetrate with flies through while we are preoccupied with decoys. So this is not working terribly well for us. But the interesting part is, in the West, the media, as always, is showing us a wonderful picture of American and Israeli military success. It's quite astonishing. I don't think that's the picture the rest of the world is beginning to get.
I came on the show this morning of a situation where, let's say, the United States launches a few massive attacks over the next week or two. And let's say that the United States eliminates all of the missiles and all of the drones that the Iranians have. This is not going to happen, but let's just assume that that happens. And then we declare victory. Where does that leave us? The regime is still intact, and they'll just rebuild the missiles. They'll rebuild the nuclear enrichment capability. They'll rebuild their drone capability. So how do we win the war? Iran is not going away. And I don't think this regime is going away. But even if this regime goes away, the regime that's going to replace it is not going to be a friendly regime. And furthermore, that regime, I would bet, will be tempted to develop nuclear weapons in ways that the regime that was dominated by Ayatollah Khamenei was not interested in developing nuclear weapons. We just assassinated the Iranian leader who was really the main block on Iran going nuclear. And now that he's gone, and given what's happening in this war, I think the incentives and the potential for Iran to develop nuclear weapons are much greater. So I think this is going to be an even bigger problem moving forward than it is now.
The British media think you're an idiot. They are trying to convince you that a foreign war on behalf of Israel is in your interests. It's time to expose the propagandists and the warmongers. They're trying to tell you that this war is a defensive war. A blind man walking down the street can see that this is pure nonsense. It's a war of aggression, the ultimate crime. These lies just don't stop. We saw it in Iraq with Tony Blair's lies about weapons of mass destruction. We saw it in the destruction of Gaza, and now we're seeing it in Iran, setting the entire Middle East, and quite likely the world, on fire. So on day one, shortly after the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei, a girls' school was attacked. It seems there are about 175 killed, 100 more injured. The following day, I picked up the Sunday papers. One of them is the Sunday Telegraph. I've been through it several times. There's no mention of that at all. Imagine if 165 Israelis had been killed in a bomb from Iran. It would have been the story on the front. It would have been covered everywhere. So I know the editor of the Sunday Telegraph, Alistair Heath. I sent him an email saying, why didn't you cover this tragedy in the girls' school? I've not received a reply. And then I read his leader in the Telegraph. The Iranian regime is built on an Islamist doctrine which cannot meaningfully be negotiated with. It's simply untrue. The Iranians do negotiate, and they can absolutely be trusted as they stick to their promises. That was proven when Obama negotiated the JCPOA nuclear deal with Iran. In 2015, they stuck to it until Trump walked away from it. And we know from the Omani foreign minister, Iranians were negotiating really hard to avoid a war. They'd actually offered a better deal than they'd signed off on in 2015. That was on the table, and that, of course, is when America and Israel struck. If we had a proper, functioning, free media in Britain, we could never be dragged into wars like this one. But we don't have a free media. We have an oligarch-owned media with the owners not in Britain, but dodging tax abroad. And the media has become a vital propaganda resource for the rich and the powerful and the violent. The first casualty of war is truth. That observation has never been more relevant than today. That's why we need Double Down News and organizations like Middle East Eye, for which I write. That's why I urge you to support Double Down News on Patreon, if you can, so that we can hold the powerful to account.
Go Salon.
A tectonic shift is taking place in the Arab world. It's nothing to do with the temporary and patchable squabbles of princes, or spoils, or alliances. Neither has it any relevance to the two traditional bugbears of the Sunni Arab ruler, Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood. It's not been triggered by a trader setting himself on fire after having his food carts confiscated by officials in Sidi Bouzid, Tunisia. No mass demonstrations have taken place in Cairo calling for the downfall of the dictator. And yet this shift could have as wide a repercussion as the Arab Spring once had 15 years ago. What's commonly referred to in the Middle East as the real nations of the Arab world, and by that we mean nations with a significant population, have woken up to what's been happening around them. Saudi Arabia, Algeria principally, but also Egypt potentially, have realized that the plan to dominate and control the key choke points of the region by Israel explicitly and the United Arab Emirates implicitly, is a threat to their national interest. The Israeli-Emirati plan is simple: fragment Arab states, control the key trade routes like the Bab el-Mandeb Straits between Yemen and the Horn of Africa, plant military bases all around the region, and you will get hold of a lucrative military and financial control for the rest of the century. Israel expressed this plan explicitly in speeches and numerous visits. It's the formula they're using in Syria, with their creation of a protectorate of the Druze in southern Syria, and attempts to do the same with the Kurds in the north. It's open and declared. They want to turn Syria into Libya, a collection of warring regions with no meaningful central control. They're trying the same policy by recognizing Somaliland, which offers the prospect of Israel getting a military foothold in the Horn of Africa for the first time in history. For Abu Dhabi, fragmentation is implicit. They deny financing and arming the RSF in Sudan and feeding a devastating civil war. They deny any connections with the RSF commander, Hemeti, who is under US Treasury sanctions. But fragmentation in Yemen has been their policy for over a decade. Initially, it was to stop al-Islah, the Muslim Brotherhood, from taking power after the collapse of the Yemeni dictator. Then came the fall of the capital Sana'a to Ansar Allah, the Houthis. Each campaign provided a cover for their real target, which was to finance, arm and install a separatist state in southern Yemen under the banner of the Southern Transitional Council in Aden. This project is nothing new, but it was turbocharged by Mohammed bin Zayed, the president of UAE, who is the brains behind everything this emirate does. Bin Zayed almost got away with it. Abu Dhabi's policy of making the STC so military strong that it could declare itself an independent state that recognized Israel was on the point of becoming a reality. All the STC needed was to take over two sparsely populated but geographically large provinces in the east of the country, Al-Mahara and Hadramaut provinces, which account for nearly half of the territory of Yemen. But this is where bin Zayed made his fatal mistake. He went too far. He overreached himself. Hadramaut shares a border with Saudi, and the appearance of the STC in the capital Mukalla sent the ruler of the Saudi kingdom mad. It sparked the wake-up call that Saudi Arabia needed. The blinkers had fallen from Saudi eyes. They felt they were being surrounded, and if they did not act now, the kingdom itself could be the next target of the fragmentation policy being enacted all around them. A country which for so long had conducted foreign policy slowly and behind bead curtains reached for the gun. The Saudis backed the counteroffensive by Yemeni forces loyal to the internationally recognized government to recapture Hadramaut and Al-Muhara. Mukalla was bombed and the STC forced to withdraw. When 3 days later Israel became the first country to officially recognize Somaliland as a sovereign state, Saudi fears that they were being surrounded were confirmed. The fall of a decade of patient work by Abu Dhabi came within a matter of days. When Saudi bombed a shipment of weapons and vehicles in the port of Mukalla, it directly called out the UAE's role in arming the southern separatists. Hours later, Abu Dhabi announced it was withdrawing its forces from Yemen. It even abandoned the island of Socotra. In a matter of hours, all the work, planning and finance of the last decade had come crashing down. This is the way the Middle East changes. Not by photo ops, choreographed in the Oval Office, not by the statements of the US President Donald Trump that he'd changed 3,000 years of history, which was dismissed as ludicrous almost before he'd got the words out of his mouth. Not by grand sounding, but in reality deeply cynical pacts like the Abraham Accords, but by sudden and silent collapses. Idris al-Zubaydi, the leader of the STC, was accused of treason by the Presidential Leadership Council, of whom he and his followers were part. For 24 hours he went missing. Saudi Arabia has since accused the UAE of orchestrating a covert operation to extract al-Zubaydi from Yemen. It was the single worst day for little Sparta's dreams to dominate the region in living memory. Saudi social media, the licensed and highly controlled voice of the kingdom, went wild. One post featured a Saudi F-16 whizzing through the sky to the tune of a song in English, which went viral. The lyrics ran, "Whoever threatened us with lions in the lion's den, we stormed the den and found no one there. Ma'azi II, the nickname of the founder of the kingdom, King Abdulaziz, now applied to MBS, has no 40 lookalikes. He resembles only his grandfather and his father, Abu Fahd." And sedition, kindled by the accursed devil, was extinguished in its infancy by Ma'azi. These words do not need parsing. The message is all too clear. The devil is now MBZ. And that's how he's being described by its neighbour and former ally. This is a massive sea change, and I think it's a terminal one. This is not something that will be possible to patch over. It is telling that in the midst of the Saudis' decisive action in Yemen, the Saudi king and crown prince called for the public Saudi national campaign to donate for Palestinians. It collected 700 million riyals and is still going. So the people who run the kingdom haven't changed. But what has changed is this: they have at last realized that the Emirati and Israeli regional plans are a threat to their own sovereignty and their own kingdom. And that is a red line for any Saudi ruling elite. MBZ knows he cannot mess with his neighbour. Saudi Arabia has a population of 35.5 million. The UAE has a population of 10 million, but only 1 million of those are citizens. End of story. Saudi's wake-up call has to be welcomed by anyone seeking an exit from the doom loop of failed American interventions and permanent Israeli occupation in the Middle East. Yes, the US President Donald Trump still wields all the military power. And yes, there's nothing to stop Benjamin Netanyahu from continuing war and occupation in Gaza, southern Lebanon, southern Syria, from here to eternity. America under Trump can kidnap the president of Venezuela. It can drop a company of special forces on Greenland, plant a flag in the ice and declare it US sovereign territory. Trump can bomb Iran for a second or third time and ruin any economy around the world if they don't play ball. No one is disputing this. But what neither he nor Netanyahu can do is deal with the consequences of their invasions, any more than George Bush could stop 7 years of civil war after he'd invaded Iraq. The Saudi kingdom does not need to respond symmetrically to Israel's clear and overt plans for regional domination, nor will it. But it can start to make life very difficult for the two little Spartas, the UAE and Israel, who are sowing the seeds of civil war and conflict all around the Middle East. In winning every battle they started, but in losing every war, America and Israel have overreached themselves. Trump's latest tweet that the Venezuelans can only buy American goods with money they generate from the oil that America is about to seize back from them is typical of a president crazed with power. Has Trump looked at the map? Venezuela is twice the size of Iraq and is largely forested, and its people are armed to the teeth. Trump and Netanyahu think they can do what they want when they want. It's long past the time for an Arab leader to stand up to them and tell them they can't.